Hey everybody, welcome to story number 2, Big John. You're going to hear a lot about Big John in the stories I tell. My dad was a special man. I think probably to sum him up best, you got to hear the story of his funeral. I told this before about him dying so that he was buried on his 80th birthday and turned out to be a celebration. Well, at that birthday, my oldest sister Gail got up and she was crying and just really serious and said, I just want to apologize to all my brothers and sisters because I feel like I kind of hogged Dad and he spent most of his time with me. And I feel like you guys never got very much. And then she sat down and my brother next in line got up and said, well, you're mistaken because, he taught me to golf and we hunted all the time and we hung out together all the time. I don't think he spent any time with any of you. It was only with me. And I went right down the line and, I got up and you're all wrong. I mean, I know Dad and I always together. I don't even remember any of you guys being in the picture, Then my little sister Pam got up and, Pam, she said, you guys are all so full of shit. I'm the youngest. He spent so much time with me. I know he never had any time for any of you. Well, that's how my dad was. He was able to make it feel like he was only there for you, To have 8 kids and be able to do that is a pretty amazing feat. He started off young and saw my mom at a young age and decided he was going to marry her, and he did. And he was signed up for the Marines and he went off to war. Before he went to war, though, he lived with his mother and father in Pierce, South Dakota. They lived on a great big farm. He worked there a lot. He went through some tragedy in his life. At a very early age, his dad was out on the tractor with his older brother, and the tractor flipped over and landed on his older brother and killed him. His dad came back, and from that day on, he never spoke another word. So he grew up as a young kid without having a father who would talk to him. Maybe that's why he spent so much time talking to all of us, making us all feel so special. But before he was going to leave, his mother used to, every time there was a tornado coming or something coming towards the farm, she had holy water she'd gotten from the church, and she would go out and sprinkle it all around the farm in Pierce, South Dakota, and the tornadoes would just turn and go away. They never had any damage. They never had any problems with it. So before my dad was heading off to the war, she gave him a bottle of holy water and told him whenever he felt he needed it, put it around him, to keep him from danger. So he signed up for the Marines because, he just felt that's where he belonged. When he left America, he had 3,000 men in their platoon, their group. And he saw a lot of fighting. I mean, he was in a lot of battles. He went through, all of Saipan and all of the Iwo Jima. And in fact, they even say that there's that picture where they're raising the flag and they say his helmet's in it because that was his group, He left with 3,000 men, and when they came back, his last stop was in Hiroshima. They stopped to see the bomb drop. You'll hear more about that story later because that's where I come into the picture. But they stopped to see it drop, and he got a picture of a Japanese flag. I mean, he got a real Japanese flag with the sun in the middle, and he had all the men sign their names, and they would put their name and their wife's name and then the city they were from. They all wrote it, 300 men all around the flag, and then he put Big John and Loretta in the center of the flag. My brother has it on the wall in his home. I put up a few pictures. I'll see if I can find a picture. I'll put it up with this video, but it's pretty amazing. And it changed him, what he saw there, especially I think what he saw in Hiroshima. He became a pacifist, He wouldn't let me go to war. When Vietnam came around, he gathered a bunch of us who had low draft numbers and talked about getting a house for us so we could get out of there, And he just always seemed like he was there to support doing the right thing, I think something happened early in that. Even though he was a Marine and he was tough, he didn't trust the government very much, and he always was worried about where they were taking us, He just felt like the integrity and the authenticity and the honesty of the men running the country was not there anymore like it needed to be. And I think that's probably what instilled that kind of belief and feeling in me at a very early age. He had had a way of touching people in that, he always listened to what people had to say, and he seemed to always have the right thing to say for whatever it was that was going on with him at the time. I know his funeral, there ended up being 1,000 people there, and I'd say half of them, nobody in the family knew who they were. Some of them got up and told stories about how he used to, how he helped them and get their first car and get their first house, because he, at a very early age, he met a man by the name of Ivan Bowen, and Ivan Bowen was a really wealthy guy. And he bought factories, and he owned car dealerships and gold mines, and he owned stuff all over the world. But he hired my dad as a as an efficiency expert, but he just bought defunct businesses. Like twice in my life, I was with my dad when he cut the bolt cutters, cut the locks off bankrupt businesses. And the first one, I think by the time he got done building it, he had 6 factories and 3,000 people working for him. I walked in the first day with him when the dust and everything, and he just looked at the factory, and he knew what he was going to do. He saw his future. He always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. But it always bothered me a little bit that he worked really hard, and I ain't going to say he didn't end up with anything in life, because he got all us and he had a good life, but he seemed to always be making other people wealthy with what he did, and he worked. But I think that was kind of a part of who he was. He enjoyed other people being successful because of things that he did, and that's kind of how he raised all us kids, to bring out the best in us. And I remember I was 17 and I was at a party, kind of a kegger out in the woods, and I was leaving, and I took a few beers, and I was taking a pee beside a car, and I looked down, and there was a gal there going to the bathroom, and, well, one thing led to the next, and we ended up making a baby. That was my oldest daughter, Jessie. We never liked each other very much, but I sure had it taken to her. The first couple of years of her life, I was pretty much the only one that raised her and there for her. And you'll hear a lot more about her in my life. I wound up having 3 kids. My other daughter, Brianna, and my son, Ben, are from my second wife, Kathy. I was married to Jenny 2 years, and I was married to Kathy almost 20. And family's a big thing around me. Family's always been a big thing around me. That's why I think I feel so much about my father. I feel his presence around a lot. I hear his wisdom, and he talks to me a lot about, the right thing to do. And I always feel him telling me to just be authentic, And that's what these stories are about. I'm going to try and be as authentic as I can. Talk to you about things that have happened in my life, and 95% of what I'm going to tell you is true. And it's true in the fact that I experienced what I experienced. It may be something that you're going to have a hard time grabbing a hold of, because some of them are pretty far-fetched and pretty out there, and some of the things I've been through in my life have been pretty amazing. But we're going to get on with storytelling. I just wanted to lay a little foundation of my family. I did in the first story, of my father and of my mother, Red. Loretta was a farmer, and I'm a farmer. I feel like that's where I got that. Everywhere we lived, she always had the biggest garden. She was really smart in that way. What she did is she'd have the biggest garden, and she'd grow the most vegetables, and she always had fruit trees. And then every year around harvest time, she'd have us kids take turns taking boxes of stuff over to all the neighbors, taking vegetables, taking fruit, and you just wait a few days, and all of a sudden it'd come back as an apple pie or some casserole they'd cook for us. And, we had 8 kids, so it was kind of nice to get that treats and stuff. Big John was a big hunter, so I spent a lot of time in my life hunting pheasants, ducks, deer, geese, that kind of thing. And we always had fresh game. Remember the first time I shot a coot, and I just shot it for spite. My dad made me eat it. It's the worst tasting bird you'll ever have in your life. He just wouldn't let, he didn't think killing things was right, but he definitely believed that, getting food for us, for the family, and helping us out by hunting was a good way to go. My mom could cook like you wouldn't believe. Um, and she would always prepare the ducks and get everything ready and cook all our wild game so it tasted really good. And she always had gardens, and she always was giving, and she had such a great heart. She always seemed to kind of be around to say the right things, but you always had the feeling whenever you're around my mom that Big John was standing there behind her. You never dared give her any lip or say anything. I think twice in my life I saw Big John come home and Loretta had to say to him, "Hey, you need to have a talk with somebody." Thank God it wasn't me. But I watched a couple of my brothers and sisters go through it because you just didn't mess with Mom, And I think that was a beautiful thing in their relationship. They were together 60 years, and it was a really beautiful thing to watch. But all right, well, I love you all. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for supporting me on Patreon, and I'm going to keep telling stories. And I travel a lot, so I might miss a little bit here and there, but I'll make it up by doing a few in a row, and we'll put them up, and I think you'll enjoy them. Namaste. So much love. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your year. Enjoy your life. All right. All I got to do is get it to turn off. You don't want to turn off? Okay. Then I'll talk some more. So, Big John. Big John had something interesting happen at a very early age for him. This is a funny story I think I needed to tell. That's probably why he left the camera on. He was, at the time he had 5 kids, and he was working 3 jobs. He was working real hard. He didn't want Mom to work. She took care of the kids. She'd never worked. I think maybe I saw her work like the last year before I graduated. She went and did a little cooking because she just wanted to get out of the house. But she never worked. He always took care of things. But he tells this story about how at an early age he had 5 kids, and he was working 3 jobs, but he wasn't able to make it. He was behind on his car payments, and he was behind on the house payments, and he was having trouble. And he got down on his knees and prayed. He prayed a lot, and he said, "God, if you see your way to help me out, find me some money right now. I promise I'll take my kids to church for the rest of their life. I'll make them go to church every Sunday." He got up and walked outside and went to get in the car, and he looked down, and on the curb was a wad of $100 bills. Back then, that was a lot of money. There were 5 of them, $500. That's about what he needed to take care of everything he had to do. And he just looked up at God and said, "Wow, thank you. I guess I got to get those kids to church now." And every Sunday, when he would walk in and get us all ready, especially when there was 8 of us, he'd be like, "If I could give that $500 back, I'd do it." There's nothing worse than getting you 8 reeled up to go to church. But he always said, if you want something, just ask for it. So that's why this was left on. Y'all have a great day. Love you.